There is work that profits children, and there is work that brings profit only to the employers. The object of employing children is not to train them, but to get high profits from their work. Lewis Hine.
Lewis Hine, an American photographer, muckraker, and child rights activist, helped expand cultural, social, and political frontiers regarding child labor, which opened the eyes of many politicians and social workers. He was born on September 26, 1874, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, United States.
If I could tell a story in words, I wouldn't need to look around a camera. Lewis Hine.
At a young age, Hine was teaching at a school in New York and suggested his students use photography as an educational tool. He was self-taught, and during his teaching career, he took his students to Ellis Island to take photos. Beyond his photography, Hine was on the frontier of the child labor movement by using his talents to advance the causes of labor rights, civil rights, and the arts throughout his life. The Gilded Age and the Progressive Era were times when big corporations were prominent and were undeniably some of the most powerful groups of people. Factories, cotton mills, and railroad companies were some of the most popular. All of these corporations had one thing in mind: money. This meant that the people working in these factories, mills, and railroads did not get paid well. This was to keep production costs as low as possible. Due to the little pay, food and basic necessities did not come easy. Families had to find a way to make more money, and corporations had felt the same. Their solution was to allow children as young as 4 to work. Parents approved of this for 3 reasons. The first being a new source of income that they desperately needed. The second being the difficulty to watch over and take care of their children due to the heavy amounts of labor. And the third reason was to familiarize them with the environment that they would be surrounded by when they become adults. These corporations had unbearable conditions, such as long hours and overcrowded and grimy environments that would cause the spread of diseases. Corporations chose children because their small bodies allowed them to do tasks in tight spaces. Employers also knew that they would be able to pay children less even than the average worker. Another reason corporations chose children to work is that they were unlikely to strike. Some children were working up to 18 hours, 6 days a week, which led to children's health deteriorating. During the Gilded Age, news photography was used primarily to document and illustrate important events and social issues. Photographs were reproduced in newspapers and magazines, providing readers with visual evidence of the rapidly changing world around them. In addition, news photography played an important role in forming public opinion on political issues. For example, during the Spanish-American War, photographs of the war's impact on Cuba helped to encourage public support for the U.S. intervention. Lewis Hine used news photography to improve and influence cultural and social attitudes regarding child labor, as well as open new frontiers in photography. His photos documenting children at work were taken in the hope of getting the public to advocate for change and spread awareness. After he released his photos, there were inspection laws and more organizations dedicated to helping end child labor. An example of a political frontier opened is through the National Child Labor Committee, which was focused on making a better future for children who had to work for these corporations.
The subject of federal regulation of child labor will undoubtedly be made an issue in the congressional campaign this fall, and the cause of child labor reform is of course very near to the hearts of the American people.
Hine took photographs for the National Child Labor Committee from 1906 to 1918, documenting the large number of young children in the labor force, which attracted national attention. He documented the conditions in factories, mines, and mills, and his images helped to fuel public opinion and push for legal changes to improve the lives of workers. Hine was influential in this effort, particularly after he was promoted to the head of the NCLC Exhibits Department in 1913. Hine's photographs were widely published in newspapers and magazines, which helped to bring attention to the issue of child labor and to create a public outcry for reform. By raising awareness about the challenges faced by workers during the Gilded Age, Hine helped to urge social and political reforms that benefited adults and children alike. Politicians and social workers began to take notice of the issue, and Hine's photographs were used as evidence to support the passage of laws that regulate child labor and improve working conditions for children. Examples of these child labor laws are the factory inspection laws in the 1800s, child labor tax law in 1919, Keating-Owen Child Labor Act in 1916, and Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938, which opened a political frontier. These laws were just the short-term impact of Lewis Hine's photographs. The reason for this is because factory inspections rarely happened and were ignored. The Keating-Owen Child Labor Act, which established a minimum age of 14 for workers in manufacturing and 16 for workers in mining, a maximum workday of 8 hours, and prohibition of night work for workers under age 1. Sadly, documentary proof of age was later deemed unconstitutional because congressional power to regulate interstate commerce did not extend to the conditions of labor. The Fair Labor Act was established to form a minimum wage and become a part of child labor wages and hours. Reformers, however, did succeed in forcing legislation at the state level banning child labor and setting maximum hours. By 1920, the number of child laborers was cut to nearly half of what it had been in 1910. Most of Hine's long-term success came from the coverage his photos gained and the influence his work had on other photographers. His legacy has influenced countless photographers, for example, Dorothea Lange, who photographed poverty and suffering during the Great Depression, and his photos continue to be admired for their visual impact and historical significance. They continue to serve as a powerful reminder of the importance in social documentary photography and the impact that visual storytelling can have on society. The attention his photographs obtained was key to uniting the national committees and using a new political weapon that was hard to look past. Hine's work also expanded cultural frontiers by challenging the prevailing attitudes of the time towards child labor. At the turn of the 20th century, child labor was viewed by many as necessary evil, with some even arguing that it was beneficial for children to work. He was a voice for these children who could not speak up for themselves and much less have representation in art.
His photos for these kids were it's not like today where everybody has a camera in their phone, and it was such a novelty. A lot of kids might not have even known what it was before they met him and before he explained it to them.
Hine took over 5,000 photographs of children and their reality. Though there were other photographers who photographed children working, such as Jacob Riis, Lewis Hine was different because he portrayed these children as they were, without trying to make people pity them. We can get a sense of the way he thought and treated these little laborers through this photo of a knitted doll. In 1908, a little girl named Millie, who worked in a cotton mill, brought a doll made of waste material and asked Hine to take a photo of her toy. Through this image, we see that he genuinely saw these kids as human. He was compassionate and would spend time getting to really know these children. Apart from taking these children's requests, he also frequently quoted these children in his photos caption. He even went through great lengths like dressing up and taking on different personas in order to gain entrance into some businesses and the real treatment these children received. Opening a frontier of the use of media to spread awareness, he was extremely dedicated to exposing the harsh conditions children suffered by showing the children at work and the tiredness in their eyes. His photographs provided visual evidence of the harsh and dangerous working conditions that many children faced, and helped to generate sympathy and support for the NCLC's cause. Hine's work made a historical impact on how we use media and inspired other photographers to have a similar impact on society with their photos today. His work in the National Child Labor Committee resulted in laws to limit child labor that are still in effect today. Journalist and author Gina Musio says,
"Photography caused us to change the way we view things and continue to change what we know to be true. Lewis Hine might be one of the forum's greatest actors for change. Through his work, the American photographer has changed America's conscience and ultimately bring about reform in the U.S. child labor laws."
Fortunately, the work of Hines and other activists did not eliminate child labor completely. It is still found in the U.S. and third world countries today. In December 2022, CNN reporter Danielle Wiener-Bronner wrote, "McDonald's franchise violated child labor laws, investigation finds. Child labor has been found happening in a McDonald's in Pennsylvania." Bronner states,
Santa Anastasio Enterprises, which operates McDonald's location in the Pittsburgh area, allowed 14 and 15-year-olds to work more than 3 hours after 7 p.m. on school days, after 9 p.m. over the summer, and above the permissible numbers of hours during the school week and non-school days, according to the Labor Department.
In the end, it can be said that Lewis Hine expanded cultural, social, and political frontiers regarding child labor and influence through his photos. Examples of these photographers today are Don Barletti and Daniel Burlock. Both photographers are known for their powerful visual storytelling on important social and political issues and photograph child labor.